This is a book bowl summary of the book Business Adventures by John Brooks. Dive into the most impactful economic, financial, and business moments of the last century. After reading these summaries, you'll grasp why Bill Gates hailed Business Adventures, received as a gift from Warren Buffett, as his all-time favorite book. Where else could Gates learn about the launch of the world's ugliest car, a wink from a General Electric executive, and the downfall of the Piggly Wiggly supermarket chain, all sharing common ground? The events detailed in this book mark significant milestones in U.S. business history, whose effects continue to resonate today. They paved the way for changes like the end of insider trading and the right of employees to work for any employer of their choosing. Unpredictable stock market, highlighting investor irrationality from the 1962 flash crash. The 1962 flash crash, a tale of Wall Street's emotional roller coaster. If you were a stock market investor who happened to slip into a 3-day coma on May 28, 1962, you'd wake up to find almost no noticeable change in your investments. However, you'd have slept through the chaos of the 1962 flash crash, highlighting the peculiar behavior of Wall Street and how investor decisions are often guided more by mood than factual information. On that gloomy May day, Wall Street was already in a somber mood after 6 months of stock market decline. A rush of trading ensued, and the central office struggled to manually update stock prices, causing a 45-minute time lag. Investors, fearing falling prices, hastily sold their shares, triggering a downward spiral that wiped out $20 billion in stock value. Emotions not only triggered the crash, but also fueled the recovery. Investors believed the Dow Jones Index couldn't dip below 500 points, and when it approached that limit, a buying panic ensued. 3 days after the crash, the market fully recovered. In the aftermath, explanations were sought, but all officials could offer was the need for the government to pay attention to the business climate, the mood and irrational expectations of the financial market. This inherent irrationality makes the market unpredictable, echoing the famous words of banker J.P. Morgan, "It will fluctuate." The Ford Edsel, a costly misstep in 1950s car design. Ever heard of the Ford Edsel? Originally intended as Ford's flagship product in the late 1950s, it turned out to be not just one of the most remarkable product failures, but also frequently labeled as one of the ugliest cars ever made. How did a successful company like Ford experience such a colossal failure? Firstly, they misjudged the market. In 1955, the American automobile market was thriving, and Ford aimed to tap into the medium-priced car segment, where it was weak. However, when the Edsel launched in 1958, economic downturn and shifting consumer tastes led people toward smaller and cheaper car models. Another reason for its failure was unrealistic customer expectations. Ford's extensive marketing, emphasizing the $250 million spent on planning the Edsel, created high anticipation for a revolutionary product. Unfortunately, the Edsel turned out to be just another car, disappointing consumers. The final blow for the Edsel was its subpar build. While Ford focused on psychological research to appeal to young families with disposable income, technical aspects were neglected. The result was a car with various issues, from unreliable brakes to erratic acceleration. Though the Edsel wasn't entirely useless, it couldn't live up to the expectations set for it. Consider returning the federal income tax system to its 1913 state. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest individuals globally, openly acknowledges that his tax rate is lower than that of his secretary, despite her considerably lower income. This situation illustrates the glaring unfairness of the U.S. federal income tax system. To comprehend how it reached this point, let's explore its increasingly convoluted evolution since its inception. In 1913, amidst concerns of socialism, The federal government introduced income tax after extensive political debates. Initially, tax rates were low, primarily affecting the wealthiest citizens. Over time, rates increased, encompassing a larger portion of the population, while simultaneously creating more loopholes for the affluent. Today, the system disproportionately impacts the middle class with relatively high income tax rates. The current structure fosters inefficiency. For instance, freelancers may intentionally halt new contracts midway through the year to avoid earning additional income due to the tax implications. The proliferation of complex loopholes has turned tax enforcement into a challenging ordeal. The Internal Revenue Service faces an annual battle against a legion of citizens' tax advisors and lawyers specializing in navigating the tax code. This not only drains resources, but also creates a cumbersome process for all involved. Despite attempts by multiple presidents to simplify the tax code, political obstacles hinder meaningful tax reform. The existing system favors influential individuals who resist relinquishing advantages, such as the preferential taxation of capital gains over salary income. The suggested solution is to reset the federal income tax system to its 1913 state and attempt a fresh approach. The Texas Gulf Case: How Insider Trading Laws Changed. Picture this: your uncle, working for an oil company, urges you to invest in their stock because they've struck oil, and the announcement is due tomorrow. Today, buying that stock could lead to insider trading charges, but it wasn't always this way, and the Texas Gulf case is a key turning point. In 1959, Texas Gulf Sulphur discovered valuable minerals in Ontario, Canada. Those in the know discreetly bought shares, even instructing relatives to do the same. When rumors circulated, Texas Gulf held a press conference to downplay the discovery while its insiders continued buying shares. When the news broke, share prices soared, making those who bought early very wealthy. While not ethical, such behavior wasn't strictly regulated until the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, charged Texas Gulf with deception and insider trading. This move, though bold, angered investors. The trial focused on whether the test drilling results had made the find's value clear and if the company's pessimistic press releases were intentionally misleading. The guilty verdict came with a statement emphasizing the public's right to a reasonable opportunity to react before insiders trade shares. This marked a shift in the regulation of insider trading, making Wall Street a bit cleaner. Xerox's tale: a swift rise and fall of success. In the early 1960s, Xerox revolutionized the market with its automatic copy machine, becoming an unexpected leader. However, this success was short-lived, and Xerox faced a dramatic downfall. Let's explore this roller coaster ride in 3 stages. First, against all odds, Xerox achieved initial success. Traditionally, people hesitated to copy documents, viewing it as stealing original content. Additionally, the process was expensive, using specially treated paper. Despite discouragement from its founders, Xerox launched its plain paper photocopier in 1959, and within 6 years, revenues soared to $500 million. Secondly, there was a sustained period of success. Confident in their position, Xerox invested heavily in philanthropy, expressing gratitude to supporters and influencing society. They became a major donor to the University of Rochester and supported the United Nations in a 1964 TV campaign. In the third stage, Xerox experienced the swift transition from success to defeat. Despite reaching its peak in 1965, the company realized it was in trouble. Competitors produced cheaper copycat products, eroding Xerox's technological advantage. Additionally, investments in research and development proved ineffective. These stages illustrate the potential challenges a growth company may face. Fortunately, Xerox survived this downturn and remains successful today. In 1963, the New York Stock Exchange saved a brokerage to avert a financial crisis. In late 1963, Ira Haupt and Company, a brokerage company, faced a crisis. It lacked the necessary capital to trade on the New York Stock Exchange, NYSE, leading to the revocation of its membership. The trouble began with a disastrous deal in commodities. The brokerage purchased cottonseed and soybean oil, intending delivery in the future, using doctored warehouse receipts as collateral for a bank loan. The fraud left Ira Haupt and Company unable to repay its substantial debt. Facing a dire situation, discussions with banks, shareholders, and the NYSE revealed that $22.5 million was needed for solvency. Complicating matters, the nation was in turmoil following President Kennedy's assassination, contributing to a declining market. In an unprecedented move, the NYSE chose to rescue Ira Haupt and Company, fearing the brokerage's bankruptcy during a national crisis might erode public confidence and trigger a Wall Street crash. The NYSE collaborated with member firms and creditors to devise a plan for debt repayment. The NYSE committed $7.5 million, nearly a third of its reserves, along with other lenders, successfully saving Ira Haupt. While such a bold move by the NYSE is unlikely to recur, at the time, it averted a financial crisis amid national panic, attributing immoral or criminal actions to communication errors by executives. When companies face scandals these days, they often attribute the issues to communication problems rather than admitting wrongdoing. In the late 1950s, General Electric, GE, was involved in large-scale price fixing, implicating 29 electronics companies in a scheme that inflated the prices of $1.75 billion worth of machinery, causing public institutions to pay over $500 million extra. Despite some managers facing penalties, higher-level executives avoided charges, citing a communication error. Middle managers misinterpreted their instructions. The peculiar communication culture at GE involved distinguishing between official and implied policies. Orders given with a straight face were official, while winks signaled implied instructions, often requiring the opposite action. This ambiguity led to confusion, and even though a policy prohibited discussing prices with competitors, many managers assumed it was merely symbolic. In court for price fixing, they couldn't blame executives, highlighting how communication problems can be exploited by leaders to evade responsibility for unlawful actions. The story of Piggly Wiggly and a stock market battle. Unless you live in the southern or Midwestern United States, you might not be familiar with Piggly Wiggly. In 1917, it pioneered the concept of the self-service supermarket, introducing innovations like shopping carts, price tags on all items, and checkout stands. Although Piggly Wiggly still operates today, it's relatively unknown, largely due to its eccentric owner Clarence Saunders, who took drastic measures to combat financial speculation. In the 1920s, the supermarket chain was rapidly expanding across the United States. However, when a couple of franchises in New York failed in 1923, investors initiated a bear raid against Piggly Wiggly, a strategy to profit from a company's falling stock price. Infuriated, Saunders aimed to teach Wall Street a lesson by attempting to corner Piggly Wiggly's stock, intending to buy back the majority. He announced plans to purchase all existing stock, borrowing heavily to acquire 98% of the shares. This move drove the stock price from $39 to $124 per share, causing significant losses for the bear raiders. Despite their losses, the raiders convinced the stock exchange to grant them an extension on payment. Saunders, burdened by debts, eventually declared bankruptcy. If only he had more influence over the stock exchange, the shopping landscape might be different, and you could find yourself navigating the aisles of Piggly Wiggly instead of a giant retailer like Walmart. David Lilienthal, transitioning from public service to business success. When a government official moves to the business world, leveraging old connections to make money often draws accusations of being a sellout. However, David Lilienthal's case defies such criticism. In the 1930s, Lilienthal served as a dedicated civil servant under President Roosevelt. In 1941, he became the chairman of the Tennessee Valley Authority, overseeing the development of affordable hydroelectric power in underserved areas. Later, as the inaugural chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission in 1947, Lilienthal championed the peaceful civilian use of nuclear power. Upon leaving public office in 1950, he openly expressed his desire to increase his income for his family's well-being and his own retirement. Entering the private sector, Lilienthal, with a background in energy, successfully revived the struggling Minerals and Chemical Corporation of America, experiencing the challenges of entrepreneurship. His business success led him to write a controversial book on the importance of big business for the U.S. economy and security. Though criticized by former government colleagues as a sellout, Lilienthal remained dedicated to both public and private interests. In 1955, he founded the Development and Resources Corporation, a consultancy aiding developing countries in significant public works projects. This venture exemplifies Lilienthal's commitment to both shareholders and humanity, showcasing him as an ideal businessman. Shareholders seldom fully utilize the power they possess. Who holds the most power in America? In theory, it should be the stockholders. As owners of the largest corporations, they play a significant role in a society where these giants wield immense influence, prompting comparisons to an oligarchic feudal system rather than a democracy. These corporations, controlled by shareholders, are governed by a board of directors elected by them, representing the true source of power. Annual shareholder meetings, where the board is elected, policies are voted upon, and executives are questioned, should be serious affairs. However, they often devolve into farcical events. Management doesn't always see shareholders as their true bosses. They make attending meetings challenging by holding them far from the company headquarters and aim to discourage participation by extolling the company's performance. This tactic succeeds with most shareholders, making these meetings mundane. The exception is professional investors who, owning stock in multiple companies, challenge boards and management into meaningful debates. A notable incident occurred in AT&T's 1965 shareholders meeting when investor Wilma Sauce criticized the chairman of the board, Frederick Capel, and even suggested he see a psychiatrist. Professional investors like Sauce, who advocate for issues like increasing diversity on boards, inject vitality into these meetings. Yet, rallying apathetic investors remains challenging, as many small investors are content with regular dividends. If shareholders exercise their power more consistently, company management wouldn't have the liberty to act unchecked. Donald Wohlgemuth's impact. You can switch jobs, even when aware of trade secrets. Imagine receiving a tempting job offer from a competitor and having the freedom to accept it. This wasn't always a clear right, and we owe thanks to research scientist Donald Wohlgemuth for setting the precedent that allows us to do so. In 1962, Wohlgemuth managed the spacesuit engineering department at B.F. Goodrich Company, a leading aerospace company. After losing the contract for the Apollo project to rival International Latex, Wohlgemuth was offered a position with more responsibility and a higher salary. He accepted the offer without hesitation. Upon informing his B.F. Goodrich superiors of his departure, feared he might disclose trade secrets related to spacesuit production. Fueled by this fear and Wohlgemuth's prior confidentiality agreement, B.F. Goodrich sued him. The case raised two crucial, almost philosophical questions. 1. Can action be taken against someone based on the assumption that they might break an agreement, even if they haven't shown the intention to do so? 2. Should someone be prohibited from pursuing a position that might tempt them to commit a crime? In a groundbreaking decision, the judge ruled that while Wohlgemuth had the potential to harm B.F. Goodrich, he couldn't be found guilty preemptively. This decision became a precedent, marking a significant victory for employee rights. In 1964, the pound sterling came under attack from speculators, and not even a coalition of central bankers could protect it. In the 1960s, the British pound sterling held significant prestige due to its age and high value among world currencies. However, when financial speculators targeted the pound in 1964, central bankers worldwide felt compelled to defend it. The roots of this attack trace back to the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944, where major economies established an international monetary exchange system with fixed currency exchange rates. In 1964, Britain faced economic challenges, running a large trade deficit. Speculators anticipated a pound devaluation and began betting against it in the market. To protect the pound's value and the international monetary exchange system, a global alliance of policymakers led by the U.S. Federal Reserve intervened. They bought pounds to counter devaluation pressure. Initially successful, the defense faced persistent attacks, and in 1967, the alliance couldn't sustain further pound purchases. Britain was forced to devalue the currency by over 14%. In hindsight, the pound sterling's valuation struggle revealed the inherent flaws in the Bretton Woods system, which ultimately collapsed in 1971, 4 years later. We hope this video provided valuable insights and information for you. What is your biggest key takeaway? Let us know in the comments below. And if you learned something new, make sure to hit the subscribe button for more videos like this. Thank you, and until next time.